Hello, true believers. This is Hank Garner.
This is M.A. Phipps.
Hey, this is Andy Peliquin.
Hey guys, this is Ernie Howard. You're listening to
30
minute
author interviews
with my buddy Preston Lay.
Woohoo!
Welcome everybody to this episode of 30-minute author interviews. Today we have Bob Williams. Thank you for joining us today, Bob.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the invitation.
Not a problem. For those that might not know who you are or what you do, why don't you kind of give them a little bio on who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Bob Williams. I'm 42 years old. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. And for the last 10 years, I've worked for Habitat for Humanity. I started out in 2006 as an AmeriCorps volunteer in the Restore. And over the last 10 years, as I said, I've kind of climbed the ladder through 4 stores. And I'm a manager. I was a general manager in another store. And I'm back in Nashville. I've been in Franklin, Gallatin, and Nashville. And if you don't know what the Restore does, we sell mostly donated items and a few new items to the public. And the money we make goes sort of in the kitty to build homes. And I am committed. I'm a Restore. I'm Habitat for life. I seriously enjoy what I do. I enjoy the mission of Habitat. It's good work, good people. And when I'm not working with Habitat, I'm married. I have a 5-year-old daughter, bunch of pets, 2 dogs, 2 cats. And although my daughter likes to say that this cat is ours, it is not. We have we feed a stray. So we even feed the occasional possum.
Oh wow!
So if you're a stray animal, just come on down. We'll feed you.
Knock on the door.
Sure. Yeah. We named the possum Linus.
Oh really?
He's a hideous creature. But he likes cat food, so it's all good.
That's great. That's cool that you work for Habitat. Our couch that we have is from Habitat. At when we lived in Charleston, South Carolina, we got it at a Restore down there.
Fantastic. Absolutely.
Still have it.
Seriously, wherever your listeners are listening from, I would guarantee that your town or city has a Restore. I encourage you to check it out.
Yeah, you can find some good stuff in there.
Absolutely. Ask my wife. I've been collecting Restore stuff for 10 years. Bookcases, furniture, artwork, appliances.
That's funny.
You name it. Toilets. It's all good.
That's funny. So speaking of Nashville, I'm friends with you on Facebook. And so I see you post about the Nashville Football Club, or as Americans know it, soccer.
Right.
Have you always been a fan of soccer, and how did that maybe love of soccer come about?
Well, I'll give you a quick little caveat. It is now the Nashville Soccer Club.
Oh, soccer. That's what they changed it.
They did. The affiliation has changed. I was part of a group of Nashvillians that started Nashville Football Club as a fan-owned operation in 2013 with the goal of bringing professional soccer to Nashville. Nashville FC in itself was it was on the NPSL. It's one of the lower levels of American soccer according to the MLS structure, Major League Soccer. And eventually we had an ownership group come in, and for a brief while, which I was very excited about, the USL franchise, which was awarded to Nashville, was going to be Nashville FC. But then some of the Nashville FC owners, because we were basically owners because it was a fan-owned team, we paid a fee every year to be an owner, did not want to give up the name. So it's now Nashville Soccer Club. But no, I played soccer as a child, and I got out of it. And then in 2000, I actually didn't even think twice about soccer for many, many, many moons. But I got hurt in 2006 when the World Cup was going on. So I was kind of laid up, and I was watching the World Cup, and that just sort of brought all that back. And I've been very passionately involved with soccer since then. I'm a big Seattle Sounders fan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
As well as the Liverpool.
Okay.
Liverpool.
I'm a Real Salt Lake fan. Soon to be Atlanta when they open theirs up next season. And then for the English Premier, I follow Arsenal.
That's okay. I still like you.
That's all right. You can be.
I mean, I loathe Arsenal, but I'm okay with Salt Lake.
We actually had a USL team or whatever it was when I lived in Charleston called the Charleston Battery.
Yeah,
and we had we had season tickets to their games when we lived there, and that was a blast. Those are fun.
Well, you know, the Seattle Sounders as well as the Portland Timbers and were USL teams.
Yeah,
that bought into the Timbers, and the Sounders have been playing for 30 years.
Yeah,
in any number of leagues, but I think it's very, very exciting for the city of Nashville to have this USL franchise. The upcoming soccer year season. Nashville Soccer Club is going to have they're going to field a team, but it's not the official situation. 2018 is when Nashville Soccer Club will take the field as the USL, but the long-term goal is to have MLS in Nashville, which I think is completely doable. Nashville is a melting pot community, which, I mean, shoot, if you've ever gone to see the United States play here in Nashville, there's 60,000 people at the football where the Titans play. It's where they play the games.
Okay.
Nissan Stadium. I mean, the place is packed full to watch the United States. So the audience is here.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, a lot of us, if this could be a soccer conversation for the next hour.
It might.
But I'm just telling you that a lot of us here affiliated with Nashville Soccer Club, then Nashville FC, were pretty bent that the MLS went to Atlanta, because Atlanta already has a really good USL team there.
Yeah.
So that's going to get interesting there, because I think it's the Silverbacks.
Yeah, the Silverbacks.
They're what's gonna happen to them? Yeah. So, but yeah, I think eventually, if the MLS does come to Nashville, it'll be awesome to get a rivalry going with Atlanta.
Yeah, I think Seattle has some of the best fans in MLS. They are just watching their games are unreal.
Well, Lionel Messi who's played several games at gosh, I don't even know what that stadium's called anymore. It's gone through 10 names, but wherever the Sounders play now, he said that environment at a Sounders game is the closest to Europe that even comes close in America.
Yeah. Well, back to your books. I'm sure people don't want to hear us talk about soccer all day.
Your soccer podcast will be starting next week.
That's right.
So start a new podcast.
There we go. The soccer podcast. You have several short stories out, and then you've got a novel out there with volume 2 coming out here hopefully shortly. I'm kind of curious, how did you get involved with Tales from the Canyons of the Dam? Because if I'm remembering correct, you are the first person that Daniel Arthur Smith brought onto that project. How did that come about?
Well, I wrote a story called Smoke, and it is available on Amazon for 99 cents. But it was a kind of a writing prompt by my brother Brody. He said he wanted me to write 1,000 words using the word smoky, and smoky, like not the dog from Tennessee, but yeah, environmental, smoky. So I just wrote this story. It's the shortest thing I've written by far. It's also the very first thing I self-published. It's just sort of Daniel actually introduced me to the term magical realism, but it's Smoke is a bar, I suppose, that has a very large Jamaican man who is reminiscent of the 7-Up commercials from the early 80s, if anybody's old enough to remember those. But and it's kind of a halfway point between earth and heaven.
Okay.
And you kind of go there while you're deciding whether you want to live or die, basically. And so I kind of got started talking with Daniel just in general, because I was trying to meet as many people as I could. Mm-hmm. And he said he had this thing, Tales from the Canyons of the Damned. And I asked him if he wanted to check it out and see if he was interested. And he did. He liked it. And that's the very first time that anything I wrote was published by someone other than me. So that was pretty fascinating.
How did you get into writing?
Well, I wrote a lot in college. My creative writing professor in college, did a lot for my ego. He said I was really good. But for whatever reason, who knows? A lot of those post-college years and college years are a little hazy. I just didn't write. I didn't do any writing, and I didn't write for a long time. But like around 2014, when I started getting involved in the independent author community as a reader, I was encouraged in the very beginning of the Apocalypse Weird sort of situation. I'm sure a lot of your readers know about that. Listeners, maybe not. It was a venture with lots of really great independent authors who were submitting books to a series. And one of the aspects of Apocalypse Weird was an avenue where you could write short stories in the world. And I'd been reading in the community for a long time, over a year. And Michael Bunker convinced me to write a story. So I wrote the story and sent it to Nick Cole, and who really liked it. And kind of the rest is history, I suppose.
How did you discover the indie writing scene?
That came from Amazon. One of my sort of, I guess, things I've done for a long time is buy music and books solely off of covers. Mm-hmm. Some of my favorite bands of all time I bought. Remember BMG back in the day?
Yeah.
Is this an old man's broadcast? You youngins don't know what BMG is, but you used to get like 85 CDs for a nickel, and then you had to pay $18 each for like 2 or 3 more. But I mean, so they'd send you this thing with like 500 stamps of music covers. So I would just pick half the stuff I picked was just off the cover, because I'm like, oh my God, I got to come up with 20 free CDs. So what were we talking about?
How you got into the indie scene.
Yeah, that's how. I came across Michael Bunker's Silo Archipelago, and I bought it off the cover because I thought it was great. It wasn't just over the top or like flashy. It was just, I don't know. It spoke to me, mm-hmm. and I didn't know what the hell it was or who he was or whatever.
Right.
But I bought it and I loved it. And I've told the story a few times. After I read it, I sent him a friend request on Facebook. And when he accepted it and actually said hello, I about fell out of my chair, because that's one of the things we were talking about earlier, is just one of the really great things about this community is just no one is really above it all. Everyone is available to everyone, which I think is great.
Yeah.
I'm a rambler. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You keep going. What kind of stuff did you read growing up?
That's a great question. I when I was very young, I read knight in shining armor type stuff. To this day, I'm still a huge fan of Lloyd Alexander's Prydain Chronicles.
Okay.
In fact, I think The High King is, if not the greatest book ever written, then it's pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
But as I got older, I tell you, I really grew up on private detective stories. Robert B. Parker's Spencer series sort of defined my 15 to 30 years old. I mean, I just couldn't get enough. I read that. I read Patricia Cornwell. My mother is friends with the author J.A. Jantz, who has a couple of different series that are detective series. So, Patterson's Alex Cross, just a lot of mysteries growing up. It wasn't until I got into my 30s that I sort of graduated into like the Dresden Files. And there's some other things I read that are more the fantastic, but I was knee deep in Spencer when I was a kid. Spencer and Hawk. Robert Urich was my hero when I was a kid.
We kind of talked earlier, we talked about how our writing time's gone down. You writing, me with podcasting and keeping up the blog. But from what you have read this year, what's your current book of the year?
It's not even close. The best book I've read this year, probably evidenced by my way too many all caps comments, is The Devil's Mouth by Matt Kincaid. That's totally illegible review I wrote, where I just basically pounded 8 cups of coffee and went nuts on a review. If you have not read this book, it is phenomenal. The main character his name is Alex Raines, and he has a history with vampires, but he wears Hawaiian shirts, a cowboy hat, and carries a katana, and it's just badass. It is so good. It's so good. I mean, I just highly recommend it. And Matt Kincaid is also a really, really cool dude. He's a cool dude, man. I suggest you follow him on Twitter.
Well, I think I do, but I'll have to double check that I do.
But I will just throw in that's one, one all the way, but 1A would be Young Slasher by Brandis.
Okay. I've started that one. And
that book is phenomenal. Yeah, I love Violets. Violet books are phenomenal.
So I'm sure you get asked all the time, like I just did, what's your favorite book and all that stuff. But what is a book that you had a hard time getting through?
I'll tell you a book that I wanted so badly to just love, but I couldn't. I put it down, and I'll be very curious to see how much hate mail I get, is Jim Butcher's The Aeronaut's Windlass.
Okay.
Which is, I'll tell you what, if I was within 100 feet of Jim Butcher, I'd pass out, because he's one of my favorite authors of all time. Mm-hmm. And the Dresden Files is just so utterly wonderful. I love that series, but the book was horrible. I mean, I swear. I'm like, oh my God, you need an editor so bad. But
that's funny.
That's the one. So in fact, I had such a hard time reading it that I tried it on audiobook, and that just made it worse. Like I wanted to throw the whole thing out the window.
Wow. So let's go back to your writing a little bit now. You have Music City McCobb, which is the Lowlying Land Saga, Volume 1, and Volume 2 just came out just last week. What is that series? What's the book blurb on it without any spoilers? What's that series about?
It's about a guy named Prescott. It's just one name. He's up there with Madonna. He's he used to be what's called a finder. That was his skill set. But then an event happened called the Descent, and that kind of put the world into blackness. And so that skill set wasn't really valid anymore. So what him and his two buddies would do would be they would help families reunite that had been separated after the descent. And what happened with the descent was I just took the sort of the zombie genre and kind of just turned it a little bit on its head. They're not zombies. They're called freaks, and freaks look normal, and they're able to act normal for a little while, but basically they just, for lack of a better term, they Hulk out, and they rage, and they just start. They grow in size, and they get all bloody, and they're just rage monsters, and they have cannibalistic tendencies. But basically, the first book opens up with, once the descent occurred, Prescott was separated from his sister, and so that's kind of the early part of that book is him. He's tracked her down, and he's going to find out what happened. And after that, he ends up in Nashville,
okay,
where he takes on the big bad Kendrick Cade.
Hence Music City. Makes sense.
Yeah.
What was your inspiration for the story?
Well, I wrote a short story with the character Prescott and with the sister Emily and their father, and it takes place where Prescott has with his friend Pollock has tracked the sister down to a building. It's a bar, and he knows that she's in there, and he goes in there and ends up having a revelation to him that sort of puts his whole life on its butt. And so I wrote that, and I sent it to Nick Cole, and also Ann Christie read it as well, and they really liked it. But the organization, there was some holes in it. So when I got involved with Apocalypse Weird, I was like, oh, okay, because Apocalypse Weird had a lot of terminology that was set throughout the series. Like there's a group called the Black Hand, and there's demons, and there's just terminology that they were giving to the writers that was like, oh well, thanks, that plugs that hole there. Okay, there. So thanks for helping me write my story. But I mean, the story was already written, but there was a lot of things that I wrote just sounded silly when you read them out loud. But when you change out what I had with the Black Hand or the 88, it really kind of brought it all the way around. But I guess what that initial part of the story, the first book takes place in Chicago, but and that was pre-written material that I had. So I had to, once he left Chicago, I brought him to Nashville where I was comfortable. And that's one of the things I was talking with some other writer friends, like, why did you pick Nashville? And it's like, I've lived here for 17 years. It's what I know.
Right.
I really don't want to go like spin a globe and slap my finger down. Oh, okay. Detroit. I don't know anything about Detroit. So, I mean, I didn't have to do any research. I just started writing. And, I did some research because there's parts of the story that takes place in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where on the campus of Middle Tennessee State University. So I had to research that aspect, but I've spent so much time in downtown Nashville. It was just secondhand to write it.
You have two other short stories, and I just want to double check with you. You have Pops, and then you have Ruby.
Right.
Are those both in this world of the Lowlying Land saga?
No, only Pops.
Only Pops. Okay.
Pops is a bridge story that you don't have to read it to read Arc City Apocalypse, which came out last week, but it gives you some insight into one of the characters from that book. And that's kind of my philosophy about the Lowlying Land saga, is that after each novel, a bridge will get you to the next story.
Okay, so then the reading order for people that want to know the correct reading order would be Music City Macabre, followed by Pops, followed by Arc City Apocalypse.
Correct.
Okay. How many books do you see in your head right now being in your Lowlying Land saga?
I don't have an idea. I really like it. I like it a lot.
Okay.
And I've been asked that a few times, and I said, well, here's what I know. Because Prescott and his two sidekicks, Cole and Shields, and there's a dog, Lexi, and then there's also kind of a featured beer that kind of is in each story. And I said, Prescott will never die, the dog will never die, and the beer taps will always work. So I don't know. I really enjoy it. I like Prescott. He feels good to me. I like writing him because he's not perfect. He's emotional and so I don't know. I don't want to think about not writing that.
So what we mentioned earlier, you're in Tales from the Canyons of the Damned, the volume number 2 and volume number 5. Do you have any other stories that you're working on for that series? At this point, I don't.
Okay. I really wanted to get it. I know that Daniel is working on a space version.
Okay.
Of Canyons that I wanted to get in on, but I think I missed it. So okay. I don't have anything. The only thing I'm working on right now is a story for Alt Chronicles Wool.
Oh, cool. When does do you know when that's tentatively scheduled to come out?
I know that my story is due to Samuel in December.
Okay. Do you have kind of a plot idea for your Wool story? Can you give us any hints?
Well, there's two things. One, if it's coming from me, it's going to be tragic. Sorry. I don't do happy. I think if I wrote something happy, it would be disingenuous. I don't know. It is basically a teacher is handpicked to be on a committee, the newly formed Office of Population Control. The population in the silo is reaching critical mass, so he's put on the committee to figure out how to curb the population, and he in a short matter of time becomes the director or whatever I don't remember he runs the office.
Okay.
And every law, every action that he puts into place affects him, his family, or his grandchildren. And so it's just basically heartbreaking that the laws that he has to put into action to save the silo basically sort of end his family.
How did you discover Wool? Do you remember how you discovered that story? And
yeah, my brother Brody was just bonkers over it. He read it. I think he checked it out from the library or something. The whole Wool phenomenon was word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who got him on it, but he was just, over the top about how much he liked it. And
mm-hmm.
So when my brother and I recommend a lot of books, TVs, and, music and stuff to each other. So when he was so fired up about it, I had to get it. And, I think Hugh definitely caught lightning in a bottle with that one.
Yeah, he did. Well, here at the Legendarium, since you mentioned music, we like to end on a little segment that we call the legendary ending. The first question I'm going to ask you, I have never got to ask you this one yet. When we originally had you on our blog, when we did our 10 question whiz segment, we had a question that we asked you that eventually got taken down. It was a little bit more controversial than I wanted it to be. It was supposed to be a fun question. The question you asked was if you could get rid of one state in the United States, which one would it be? So it was a little more controversial than I wanted it to be. I just wanted it to be fun.
If I recall, I refused to answer that.
I think you did.
Took a pass.
I think you pled the fifth.
Yeah, right.
So we replaced that question, and the question we replaced it with is, what song best describes you and why?
Oh, wow. It's right on the tip of my tongue. It's a song called Mekong by The Refreshments.
Okay.
It's just about some guys that go on a trip to Mexico, and a lot of things go wrong, but they still have a great time. And I think that really personifies me, because I think I always try to see the positive in things, and occasionally if things go wrong, you can still turn it around and have it be a positive experience. Life is not always perfect, but you can still catch a good wave.
Sticking with the music theme here, what songs are currently on your writing playlist?
It's a great question, and this is going to be a horrible answer, but I don't listen to music when I write. And,
really?
When I was on Hank's podcast with him and Brandis, they both, I don't want to say rely on music, but it's a big part of their writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't listen to music. In fact, anyone who follows me on Facebook has seen the picture before, but I wear these really giant Husqvarna black and orange lawn mowing earmuffs when I write. Maybe I'll send you a picture. You can put it up on your blog. But
we'll use this picture for the interview.
Dude, I should have. I'll send you a picture wearing them. But okay. I write in complete silence.
Okay.
Because, and this kind of goes to what we were talking about a little bit before we came on, was I can't really recreationally read while I write either, because it took me 5 months to write Arc City Apocalypse, and I've struggled to read this one Star Trek book. This is a really great book by David Mack, but I couldn't read it because when I'm writing, I want my writing process to be 100% mine. And I think if I recreationally read something, or if I'm listening to music, then I end up taking concepts from that, and then it's not mine. And if I get an idea from something that's not mine, then that kind of pisses me off a little bit. So I try and write in complete silence so that I can think clearly to write my story.
That's interesting, because I have some people that say if they listen to music, they have to have instrumental music. They can't have songs with lyrics because it'll just distract them. So
I don't really believe in songs without lyrics.
It makes it right.
Except for maybe the last of the Mohican soundtrack.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that one.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question I haven't asked anybody. Since you like music so much, what are your top 5 albums of all time?
Oh, golly. I'm terrible.
Or top 3 or whatever.
I'm terrible with names. Album names. I can give you bands.
Okay.
But names. Probably my favorite band is Roger Clyde and the Peacemakers. They're out of Arizona.
Okay.
They started out as the Refreshments.
Oh.
But they're now, or for the longest time, the Refreshments were only lasted 2 albums. And then Roger Clyde went solo with everyone from the Refreshments but the drummer. But let's see, Roger Clyde, Widespread Panic, Widespread Panic has a live album that's called Light Fuse Get Away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of a really, really enjoyable music experience for me as far as albums. Album title for Roger Clyne, which I highly recommend, is called Americano, which is fantastic. And the Frozen soundtrack is exceptional. Dead air. Just hang on. No, I have a 5-year-old. Okay. I was just kidding about the Frozen soundtrack.
Funny Frozen story. We had some nieces and nephews that came over, and we actually hid that movie. We got it for free.
Right.
And we hid it because we didn't want to have to listen to it the whole weekend. It might still be hidden. We're not 100% sure if we took it out and gave it away. But
to go off topic real fast, but I'll tell you what, I have a 5-year-old. I've seen a lot of Disney movies, like Brave, over it. You know, some of those, I'm just Aladdin, over it. I could watch Frozen every day until the end of time. That movie is phenomenal.
Really?
Of all the movies, maybe that or Wreck-It Ralph are the bomb.
Okay.
My daughter likes to call me a selfish diaper baby. If you haven't seen Wreck-It Ralph, it's phenomenal. All right, last album. Let me see. I'd have to say Springsteen, Born to Run.
Okay. If you had a time machine, where would you travel and why?
Wow. That was on your original thing, wasn't it?
It might have been.
You talk about in my life or anywhere?
Anywhere.
Anytime. Oh,
yeah. You have a time machine, you can go anywhere.
I'd go back to the medieval times.
Would you?
I'd like to do some jousting, eat one of those big giant, freaking turkey legs or whatever those things, just have the juice all over my face and just clank the metal glasses and spill wine and sing songs with the guys. That would be awesome.
That's awesome. And if you could have one superpower, what would you have and why?
I guess if I would like to know I'd like to read minds.
Okay.
I'd like to know what people think.
Why's that?
I'm that insecure.
Gotcha.
I'm that insecure. I would just like to be able to look someone in the eye while they're saying, read your book, loved it. But I can really see in their minds, they're going, what a piece of shit.
And then, of course, the question that we're famous for. A penguin walks through the door right now wearing a sombrero. What does he say and why is he here?
Now, I know I answered that one on your blog, too.
You did.
In Spanish, for that matter, too. He would say, hello, my name is whatever I said his name was. I've wet my pants. Could you show me to the bathroom, please?
There we go. And then before we leave, do you have any advice, whether it be for writing or for life, that you would like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think I will never give anyone life advice. You don't want that. You don't want that from me at all. But I will tell you what I've learned in a very short amount of time of writing is that write your story. Don't let outside influences or opinions or social whatever you think is socially acceptable or anything like that. Don't let any of that stuff affect the story that you want to tell. And in Music City McCobb, I write some pretty graphic violence, and I remember being really nervous about people reading that and not seeing the story, but kind of looking at me like, man, that dude could be pretty twisted, But I think I said, you know what, that's the story I want to tell. So I guess what I would just say is don't let anyone affect your story.
Sounds good. And where can our listeners go if they want to learn more about you or your books?
You can go to bobwilliamscreations.com. One word, all lowercase. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Goodreads, Instagram. I have a pretty hardcore social media footprint. I really enjoy interacting. So anyone who listens to this, if you read something of mine or and want to talk to me about it, I cannot welcome that anymore. Even if I've communicated with a couple of authors a few times about things that I read of theirs that I didn't like or didn't understand and went to them to converse about that, I would welcome that on any occasion.
Well, we will put links to all of your social media links and website in the show notes over at the Legendarium, and people can head there, like you, and or follow you and get a hold of you and start talking to you about your books.
Sweet. Like me.
Will
really like me.
Sounds like a plan. Well, thanks for coming on this episode of 30-Minute Author Interviews. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it, and I'm honored to be invited.
Well, guys, that's all the time we've got for this episode. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and listening to 30-Minute Author Interviews, and I hope you come back next week when we have a brand new author interview for you. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and family on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever your favorite social media site is. And if you have a minute, head on over to iTunes, search for Legendarium or 30-Minute Author Interviews, and rate and review the podcast. It will help us get discovered by new listeners. And until next time, guys, stay legendary. And if you would, wait and subscribe. It weighs about 250.